Hello and welcome to another video in choosing a main series. The goal of the series is to give you all the details related to builds, playstyle and leveling for each class, so you can make an informed decision if you should start or switch to that specific class. This video will be focused on Elementalist and all its specs, and we will start with the core class. Elementalist is a light armor class and it has the lowest HP compared to Necromancer and Mesmer. The theme for the class is elemental magic, and the class mechanic is one of the more interesting ones for the base classes. Elementalists have 5 weapon skills like other classes, but in addition to this they also have 4 elements that you can switch based on the situation. You have fire, which is damage and burning focused, water, which is healing focused and it also has some crowd control. Then we have air, which is another damage focused element, but it has crowd control elements too. And finally we have earth, which is a defensive one with some crowd control and damage over time. But the good thing is that you're not stuck in an element or have huge cooldowns, so you can switch around during the fight to make the best use of the skills for each element. This is also why people say it feels like you're playing a piano, because while most classes have 5 or 10 weapon skills, Elementalist has 25. As for the leveling, the experience can be fun and engaging when testing out different weapons, and when you reach level 80 you should focus on getting your preferred elite spec, as it will do more damage than the base class. And the build that I used in the video can be seen on the screen. Please note that I'm using these weapons from the elite specialization, and you can use them too if you have the feature unlocked. If you do not have it, then you can use dual daggers and it will work out fine. Time for the first elite spec, Tempest, which was added with Heart of Thorns. Tempest is both a support and a DPS spec, and it covers a lot of builds. You can play as a full Condi DPS, Condi Alac DPS, and Heal Alacrity. And if you really want to, you can also play Power DPS and Power Alacrity DPS, but you will do a lot less damage. Now let's talk about the class mechanics. Tempest gain access to shouts, and you can attune and overload an element now. This means that after you switch elements, you need to wait a few seconds, and then you can use the same element again with an overload. Now, depending on the element, the overload will be different. Fire will create a ring of fire and a twister, which is also a combo field. Water will put you in avatar mode, which cleanses conditions and heals allies. Air will create an area that drops lightning strikes, and it is a combo field too. Then earth, which also makes you look like an earthbender and gives you stability. So, if you're a fan of the Avatar series, then this is the class for you. But this is not all the Tempests gain access to. They will also be able to use a Warhorn in the offhand, which is actually very powerful and works great with both DPS and heal builds. And if you have access to the weapon mastery, you will also be able to wield a sword, which is not that useful for Tempest, a hammer, which can work if you want to use it, and the main hand pistol, which works really well with the Warhorn for DPS and support DPS builds. As for the builds themselves, I will add them in the description of the video. Next we have the Weaver, which is also a pure DPS spec and was added with Path of Fire. Weaver is a very interesting and complicated spec, but it feels really nice to play in my opinion. You can play this as Power or Condi DPS, but I think the Power version feels nicer. Let's talk about the class mechanics. Weaver is all about combining elements fast, so you can be attuned to 2 elements at once. But do not worry, you can still fully attune to only one of them, and you will need to for the maximum DPS. So the way this works is that if I am attuned to fire, and then I change to air, then I will have the first 2 skills from the new attunement, which is air, and the last 2 skills from the old attunement, which is fire. And the middle skill will be a combination of the 2 elements. And if I press air again, then I will be fully attuned to air, and all skills will be from the air element. And one more important thing is that your cooldowns for switching elements are shortened considerably. You also gain access to stances and the main hand sword, which works really well with the power build. But the only downside is that you'll be stuck in melee range. Weaver also gains access to the Warhorn from Tempest, which is really powerful and works for both power and Condi builds. Then the hammer, which used to be better than the previous combination, but it was nerfed. And the pistol from Secrets of the Obscure, which is a Condi weapon and will work with the Condi build best. As for the builds themselves, I will put both of them in the description of the video. And the final elite spec is Catalyst, which was added with End of Dragons, and it is another spec with focus on the support side. Catalyst can be played as power or Condi DPS, but the power build is the most utilized one. And you can also play as power quickness DPS. You can technically play this as a heal too, but it doesn't compare with the Tempest. So, moving on to class mechanics, Catalyst has the most annoying class mechanic, at least in my opinion. As a Catalyst, you gain access to Jade Spheres, and you have one for each element. And these spheres can grant boons and are also combo fields depending on what element you deploy. They also increase your damage if you combine them with an augment utility skill, but so far nothing is bad. The problem comes when you want to generate energy, because if you didn't have enough energy to cast 2 Jade Spheres at once, you'll not be able to gain more energy while they are active. So you have to wait and then attack again, and then you need to get enough energy so you can cast 2 skills. Moving on to weapons, Catalyst gains access to Hammer, which also has a special skill for each element. And this makes the energy generation easier once you have all the elements spinning around you. But you can keep them up only for a limited time. You need to use the skill at the end for a big hit. You also gain access to the Warhorn and Sword from Tempest and Weaver, which can work well on the power DPS version of Catalyst. And you also gain access to the pistol from Secrets of the Obscure, which works really well with the Condi DPS build. As for the builds, you will find them in the description of the video. So, in conclusion, Elementalist has a good build variety and a very active playstyle. What I mean by this is that you'll need to press at least double the amount of skills compared to other classes to get the same numbers or provide the same boons. But it's not all bad. The gameplay is fun and engaging, but also very punishing if you're not prepared. Which is why I would not recommend this class to a new player. Of course you can play it if you like this type of class, but if you're just looking for a mage, go with Mesmer or Necromancer. As for the more veteran players, I think you should give Elementalist a try, at least with Weaver if you want something very engaging, or Tempest if you want a simpler rotation. And the last thing that I like about the class is that all weapons can work on all specs in some way or build, and there aren't many classes that have this. So if you want to make use of all the gear from all the specs, then go for Elementalist. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, please click the like and subscribe buttons.